So we're working on a watering project today. So we've gone through and we've got a pond we've done recently that we're going to show in a bit. And we made a homemade screen for the pickup end. So the pond's high enough up, we should be able to gravity feed to our stock tank that we just got settled up and leveled up. And so I don't have to make a floating one, try to keep it off the bottom of the pond. What I've done is come up about 10 inches on a pail. We've drilled holes all the way around to let water in. We filled it half full of rocks. When we get up there and to the pond, and after we filled it full of water so we can do our siphon, we're going to install the lid back on top with a hose clamp. And the hose is going to be hooked to the pail. And the rocks will keep this right on the bottom of the pond. And we have a secondary screen to keep out the fine filtering. So hopefully we don't have any problems with leakage on our valve. And this is the simplest, cheapest screen pickup that you can rig up for a pond. And most of us, if you run heavy equipment, have hydraulic pails galore. So
how'd you make the screen?
So we used stainless steel house screen. We've gone through and just cut a square, folded it up over, doubled up some hose clamps since I only had 1-inch hose clamps, and the end fitting on that hose is like 1.25 inches. So we doubled up hose clamps to do a farmer fix, cheap version of a larger one since I didn't have another one. And that is our screen setup. So what we have to do next is actually slowly lower the hose into the pond, letting it all the way up through, filled with water, get all the air out of it. And after we have that, we'll show you, we're gonna put a valve on the end that we can shut it off so it can't drain. We can drag the water hose down through, get it all the way down below the pond. We should be able to open the valve and it should self-siphon right down to the stock tank. As long as we have more than a couple feet drop, and I think we have more like 5 feet drop from where the pond's at to here, we should be perfect. And I like to use one continuous hose if possible, because every time you have a junction, you run a chance of having air pockets or a slight leak, and that will break and kill a siphon. So hopefully a 100-foot hose is gonna be really close. We'll see. We have a short one in there. If we have to double up, we'll see if we can make it work. And over here, we have a 300-gallon stock tank that we set in. So we got it leveled up so she doesn't shake. We got it pretty close to level. I got it up against some thorn bushes, so the cows don't really like messing around with it. So we can try to keep the cows from going around the backside of the stock tank. That thorn bush is dead, but it's still pretty spiky, so hopefully that keeps them away from it. Long term, I want to do a buried line here to a stock tank. So if the siphoning and everything works great, we're going to have by fall a buried line. So this is our trial run pond that we put in. So there was an old farm dugout where they had dug a little shallow depression for cattle in the past, probably up to a couple hundred years ago. And it's next to their old orchard. So what we did is I dug a test hole that has done fantastic. You can still see some of the seeps coming in from the side in the clay where it's super wet. And we've been in the middle of a pretty dry spell. So anytime there's still water flowing right now, it's because the ground is saturated. So we dug a test hole. It filled all the way to a foot from the top of the ground within a couple days. And since we dug it, it's been a couple weeks. And you can see there's tadpoles actually kicking in. I don't know if they are frog or we have the little salamanders too. So, but anyhow, it's filled up within a foot of the top in a matter of days. So we finally got back into here. As I didn't want to mess too much with the original vein because of how good it was flowing. So we sat over and we dug out and we put a larger pond. We've hit 2 more fill-in veins, but they're lower. So it fills up to about 2.5 feet of water so far. And that's with us being in the middle of a semi-arid period. So it'll be interesting to see how full it actually gets. I finished digging in it yesterday evening around 5 o'clock and it's filled up quite a ways. So we'll see over the next week if it fills up even higher, but we have enough that I believe we can fill that tank and still have a little bit in the bottom of the pond. So we're gonna go ahead and about filling up the siphon line. The biggest thing is, yes, it's murky. We just got done digging. It's a mixture of sand, clay, and rock in here, boulders, with like the giant one I'm sitting on that's a couple tons here, this giant boulder.
Don't let me fall down.
I'm not gonna let you fall in. So, it is murky. It will clean up as it sits, all the gravel, grits, and clay bit, and everything else that's all murky in there right now will dry out. The problem with the reason it's so murky is it filled in faster than I could dig the hole. So when it was filling in, water is constantly missing and washing the material, so it is murky. So we're gonna see about getting the siphon set up.
Am I even taller than you now?
You are right now, aren't you? All right, here's the truth. Let's see if it will pull through. Come on, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going. So we've got the siphon pulled through again real quickly, just dropping as low as I could over here and sucking on the end of the hose since it's all clean water from the house in this bottom hose so far. And we got it started back up, so we're just letting it run and hopefully work its whatever air pockets in there are out. And as long as it manages to pull through and actually create a suction out of the pond, we're golden. So we'll just let her run here for a few minutes and it should strengthen up as the air pockets work their way out. And so far so good. Looks like it's going to be a nice slow flow. We're only talking about, I think, a 6 foot difference in height, which is a little more than 2 psi. So that would equate to the low flow we're seeing is that 2 psi difference. But it's working. Not bad for 2 psi.
So we're just gonna walk along the course of the pond, down the hose to where we put the water tank. Just see where our rough draft of this project looks like.
Proof of concept.
Yeah, proof of concept. To be beautified at a future date.
If it ends up working well, it'll be a buried line.
Yep. We can do the same idea. We'll just take actual water line and bury it. How deep would you bury it?
4 feet in here.
That would put it below the frost line for us? Want to bet on how many ticks I'm going to get from walking through this?
At least one.
Only one?
At least one.
Oop, thorn bush. Found the thorn bush again with my ear. Ow. And there's the stock tank. We did have the stock tank originally right there, which is what you guys saw earlier in the video. And there was enough head to get water when the hose was in the bottom of the tank, but not enough when we had to bring it up to attach it to the float. So then we moved it down across to this lower point. And as you can see, yes, it is still murky pond water because none of the sediment has settled out, but it is filling the stock tank nicely. And then the hose is going into that float. So once it hits the float, it should theoretically shut off and the cows will have 300 gallons of water available to them.